Boys, gamers, say hi to YouTube. I want to talk to you about something very interesting. Mike Brandt, you might have heard of him, you might have not. He's the Games Workshop's community worldwide events organizer thingy-mabobby. He organises all the events for Games Workshop now. And he used to organise Nova, or the Nova Open, which is one of the largest events in the world, and Games Workshop went yoink and took him for themselves so he could run all their events instead. Now, there's been a little bit of drama happening in the community.
Tell me more.
There's been a little bit of drama because the Grand Tournament Series, which is now called, which is being held in Orlando, Florida, Austin, Texas, and New Orleans, Louisiana, are three major events across the US now. And I think this is probably the first time, or the first time in a very long time, that Games Workshop has run some like massive events across the US, whereas in the UK, they've been running large events for quite a long time at their home at Warhammer World. Now, Warhammer World used to, before the pandemic, used to hold like hundreds of people, like 120, I think, sometimes. It was a massive, massive venue, and the rules for what they have at their own tournaments are very well known across the UK. Whereas in the US, I think things have got a bit leery. Because they've not had Games Workshop right in the centre of their country and being saying, look, this is how we do things around here, and everyone else just kind of doing their own thing, but everyone very aware of what's happening at Games Workshop. And people aren't very happy about it, I will say.
I'm angry.
So, we have the pack, the Grand Tournament Series of the 2021 US Open. It's a pretty decent pack. It looks exactly the same as the Nova Open pack. And the thing that's coming down to it is this page here. This page is not very nice.
Well, if you think that's offensive, check this out.
On this page, it goes through what is expected of the models you're going to be taking to a Grand Tournament. And a lot of it is relatively normal, except for this bit. All miniatures in your collection must be from Games Workshop or Forge World, which again, inside the UK with Warhammer World, this is like normal. This is just very, very normal, because when you go to Warhammer World, it's the home of Warhammer, it's where it's produced. Whereas when you go to a tournament in the US, like, they don't have this. They don't have like Games Workshop sanctioned events. So a lot of people, a lot of companies thrive in the US making third-party models, whether that's third-party stand-ins, such as like Creature Caster, for example. They make some excellent demon models. There's also Shapeways with Pop Goes the Monkey and etc. with 3D printed parts. And just in general, people 3D printing parts or buying stuff from other places. Again, in the UK, it feels kind of like non-news, but in the US, I imagine this is quite interesting, because every event in the US pretty much has been independent for as long as I personally can remember. You know, you have the ITC, you have Frontline Gaming, all the other big massive events that are run, which are supported by GW, but they're not like GW events, you know? I imagine it's just caught people off guard, mostly in the US. Again, everyone uses third-party miniatures over there. All the events are independent. One person in particular, Don Hewson, was trying to say that this means that you have to paint with Citadel paint as well, but, you know, stop being daft. The thing is with it, it just kind of makes sense. Like, you know, I 3D print stuff all the time, right? I 3D print stuff in front of me. This is by Rocket Pig Games. One thing I don't really do is 3D print for 40k or Age of Sigmar now, because I'm an Age of Sigmar player, don't forget.
Oh, okay.
Where I live like just over an hour away from Warhammer World, so if I ever want to play at their events, which I do frequently, I can't take 3D printed parts. Now, there is a caveat in terms of 3D printing. It says that it allows you to scratch build. You can manipulate scratch build or heavily convert elements. You should make sure that conversions are in the same size. If you do make any conversions, you have to submit them and make sure they're approved, which again is relatively normal. I think this bit is a kick of the teeth for a lot of people. What this basically means is that you can't convert into a Forge World model. We have all seen someone sticking storm cannons on a Redemptor, and it shouldn't be allowed. It isn't allowed. I won't allow it. These guys won't allow it. It's ridiculous. The other thing, which again, for me, is very much very known. It says, if you are using rules for your army that are different from the colour scheme in which they're painted, you must have that army approved. Now, let me tell you a little story. Story time with Mikey.
Story time.
Mikey. Once upon a time, little wee Mikey had just been to No Retreat. And there I was using my Space Marines. It was the start of 8th edition, right? I was using Ultramarines. And a lot of you players are thinking, oh, you play Blood Ravens, you don't play Ultramarines. And the thing is at the time, the Ultramarines was the only way to play because they gave Roboot Gulliman out, who was so broken. So I used to play with this guy. This is Red Butte Gilliman because he's got a red bootay. He was actually called Archighost the First in my lore. He was a copy of Rabute Gilliman that Cole made that took the gene seed to the Blood Ravens. And then I was going to Warhammer World and I read this line, something similar, something at Warhammer World, right? I said like, hey, I'm using Blood Ravens, they don't have a known founding.
Do you mind if I use my Gilliman?
Right. I was kindly met with an email from a person called Elliot. Elliot, the events manager at Warhammer World. Elliot sent me an email back. He said that no, you can't use Gulliman because Gulliman's an Ultramarine and that's a Blood Raven, so you can't use Gulliman. And I was heartbroken.
And the Emperor was heartbroken.
Anyway, when I got to the event, there was 19 other people, all with Gullimans, that weren't painted as Ultramarines. They were painted as different colours. So I had a chat to Elliot and we had a good chat. Anyway, he writes the rules for 40k now. Shout out to Elliot, what a legend. So it's not news. It's not news to me. But like, again, in the US, they've never had this sanction, you know, they've never had this restriction. And I think that's why it's catching people off guard, you know, it's upsetting people. So there's also been a lot of chatter about this one, which is from the Warhammer World, essentially model requirements document. And it talks about are 3D parts I've designed allowed. Now you're allowed to sculpt Games Workshop miniatures, you know, you like to do some green stuff in. That's totally fine. But this is quite interesting. They are saying that you're allowed to design and print bespoke parts, but you're not allowed to buy third-party parts. Now, I couldn't take my Hellblasters to the Warhammer World event where I mentioned this because I had Shapeways stick-on icons on the shoulders. I don't have those miniatures anymore. I gave them away for that reason. But now, if I designed them myself and printed them, I would actually be allowed to use them. The issue is going to be is if they can ever tell, which is probably going to be very minimal time, you know? I don't think there's going to be a lot of time they can go up to a miniature and be like, nah, you didn't design that, we bought that. Unless it's super popular, like Shapeway stuff, you know? What I did hear, little rumour regarding 3D prints at Warhammer World, is someone put a big Tyranid monster in the cabinet and they almost won an award until they realised it was 3D printed. But it's just a rumour, might not be true. Like my 3D printed head, right, technically is allowed. I mean, that'd be fine. Have an entire Warhammer Blood Ravens for your head. Well, that's allowed. I've designed it myself. It's taken me 27 years, but I've designed it, you know? I've shaped it. But like, yeah, so you do get punished for painting your army in an official scheme, which why a lot of people paint them now in like custom schemes. Like every single one of my army now is custom, you know? Like my Necrons are custom. Death Guard have got painted custom just in case the plague companies had to be different colours. Eldar, Drakari, both custom colours. Tyranids, Gene Stealers, you know? Detailed cults, all custom colours. Because if you paint them an official colour and people recognise it, then you get punished at these sorts of events. But like, the fact is that like, this model, right, costs, I don't know, it's like 40 quid. This model costs £40 on the shelf, right? And I spent a good 20 hours painting him, right? What difference on the tabletop does this miniature bring compared to a blue one? It's got the same weapons, got the same head, it's got the same loadout, it's the same size on the right base. I mean, it's worth 4p more than other Gullimans, you know? So Mikey, how many non-blue Gullimans won their games? I won a 40-man tournament with this guy. You know, don't brag about it though, like some people. Start coaching service like some people. The idea of this video was to complain about the terrain, but here we are. So the thing is, my complaint, which I stand with the US now, I stand with them, is that I don't care what colour you painted your models. It's all the same. You know, if you bought the miniature, the real miniature, not some third-party crap, and painted it in a colour scheme that matches the law, you shouldn't have an advantage to being able to use that miniature over me. That is stupid in a tournament setting. In a narrative game, yeah, fair enough. Don't have Gulliman with your Blood Ravens. That doesn't make sense narratively. sucking up to get subscribed to the US. Yeah. Yeah, subscribe right now. I want to get 69% US audience. They'll understand my memes.